Amagyanatimirandasya Gyananjalashlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambhitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So today we'll continue with reading from Bhagavad-gīta as it is, from His Divine Graces Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, the founder-ācārya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And last time we did Krishna's instructions on the immutable spirit soul, and basically Arjuna and Krishna established the relationship of guru and disciple, or spiritual master and disciple, and Krishna gave first instruction on the spirit soul that first thing at all, that there is difference between the body and soul, and then also that each individual soul is eternal, and there is no beginning nor end for this individuality for Krishna, and also for his particles, the small spirit souls, living entities like us. So this was the basic teaching of Krishna in these 3 verses, and now we continue about hearing about the soul. Dehinosmi yata dehe komaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. Dehinaha of the embodied asmin in this yata is dehe in the body, komaram boyhood, yauvanam youth, jara old age, tata similarly, deha antara of transference of the body, praptihi achievement, dhiraha the sober, tatra thereupon, na never muhyati is deluded. Translation: as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Purport: since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of that, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering, according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause for lamentation. So here is something what we can easily call Krishna's theory of evolution. So evolution basically doesn't happen that the bodies are evolving, but the soul is going through the bodies. Even in the present body, this body, even modern science is saying that every 7 years, the body completely exchanges or changes all the cells, even in the bones, and all these cells are removed and replaced with the new ones. So basically, body we had 7 years or more ago is completely different. So what is then our identity when this body is completely different? How we can say that we are the same person? So, and in this way, as this body changes, so the same way, when the time of death is coming or comes, so the soul is leaving this present body and is going to another one. And this can be either new material body or spiritual body, depending on the consciousness of the living entity. So that's why Krishna is saying that there is no reason for lamenting for this, because Bhishma and Drona, they are already quite old people, and even if they they die in the battle, so they will get new bodies. Either it will be, and they had also good chance to have bodies in heavenly planets. So like this. So basically, we can say also, we can extend the theory of evolution in this way, that the soul is changing the bodies, and not the bodies are evolving, but the consciousness of the soul is evolving, or is being more pure or more polluted, and that's why it's taking different bodies. So that the ultimately theory of evolution is not correct. This is the correct version how evolution happens. Bodies are all the time, there are 8,400,000 species of life in this universe. So the soul is just changing or taking the particular body according to his present state of consciousness from this big catalog of various life forms. But these life forms are always the same. They are not evolving to any other species. They are remaining the same. They may disappear or appear. That can happen, but basically there is no change in this catalog. So we go on further. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the supersoul and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable, against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called kshara, that is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the Supersoul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then the relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless, because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity. Arjuna is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So the person who is in his knowledge of the constitution of individual soul and super soul and their nature is called Dhira, or a sober man. And he is not bewildered or deluded by such changes of bodies. He understands what is going on. And again, we have here some theory of Mayavadis that they think that the Supreme Soul, which contains all the small souls, is basically those souls are cut from this the big soul into small parts, and then they live for some time separately, and then they merge again into this big soul. But the thing is that the Supreme Soul is unchangeable, so in this way it would be changeable. So this theory doesn't prove right in this way, because Supreme Soul never changes. Also, the small individual souls of jivas or living entities are also not changing. And at the same time, they are part and parcel of the bigger soul. This is called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference of the living entities or the Supreme Soul. It is quite difficult concept to understand by material logic. There must be spiritual intelligence to understand this concept. By material science or material logic, we cannot grasp something which is the same and different at the same time. It doesn't make sense. But on a spiritual level, it can be understood. So yes, so this individual or super soul is meant like also it's not cut, it's just like a reflection. Like we can have many lakes, and we can see in each lake the reflection of sun or moon. But the sun is one, the moon is one. Just we see it like this, that we are in different places and there are these reflections. So the same thing is with the super soul. How it is perceived is the one same person, but is reflected in each individual living entity's hearts. And then there is a statement that if living entities were on the same level like the Supreme Lord, then it would not have any sense that Krishna would instruct Arjuna, because they are on the same level. Arjuna naturally or Krishna must be on the higher level, because that's the position of a teacher. So Krishna definitely cannot be covered by Maya or deluded by the illusory energy. Otherwise, he would not be able to instruct this Bhagavad-gītā. So that's why he's superior in position. Okay. Shloka 14. Matra sparshas kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama payino nityastam titikshasva bharata. Matra sparshaha, sensory perception, to only. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Shita, winter, Ushna, summer, Sukha, happiness, Dukkha, and pain. Daha, giving, Agama, appearing, Apayinaha, disappearing, Anityaha, non-permanent. Tan, all of them. Titikshasva, just try to tolerate. Bharata, or descendant of the Bharata dynasty. Translation, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport: in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January, February. It is very cold at the time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute this duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya or illusion. So here, duty means that we are doing this or taking the responsibility, whatever the conditions are. We are tolerating the conditions. Like if there is, let's say, hot, we can adjust our dress, or is cold, we can put more cloth, but still we are doing the same duty. It's not like because it's starting to rain now I'm stopping my work, or it doesn't work like that. So duty is not depending on the conditions. We have to do the duty all the time. So the same for, there are some injunctions like taking bath early in the morning, even in the winter season. In fact, this execution of duties ultimately will give us very, very high stability in our life, despite this apparent or temporary inconveniences. In the long run, even for our health, it will be better. It looks like very unpleasant to take bath in winter, but still, if we take bath in winter and we use the proper temperature of water, which is not so cold and not so hot, and especially in India, we can get such water from the ordinary hand pump. That water has here constant temperature all year round, like around 22 to 24 degrees. So with this water, even in winter, we feel that it's warm, and in summer, we feel refreshing. So this is Lord's arrangement, that he's supporting us in this way. So ultimately, it's not so unpleasant as it may seem in the beginning, and it has many benefits. This performance of duties bring us a lot of benefits in our life if we stick to them and we are persistent. So the same for Kshatriyas. They have to do their duties despite they have to deal with their family or friends. They should not deviate from these duties. In the two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata it signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. This is another aspect. If we are given some advantages, some facilities, or good character, or good family we are born in, and good education. So also with these gifts we receive, there is a higher responsibility to use them properly. We should not misuse. We should utilize them for the service of the Lord. So it's not just we will enjoy these benefits, but we should see that there is also proper usage of them. Okay, 15. Yamhina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Yam one to whom he certainly never vyatayanti are distressing. Ete all these purusham to a person, purusharshabha a best among men, sama unaltered, dukkha in distress, sukham and happiness, dhiram patience, sahi amritatvaya for liberation, kalpate is considered eligible. Translation: O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport: anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashram institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyāsa, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyas order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause he took sannyas and was steady in the discharge of high duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. So, again, the same topic about the steadiness in execution of duties and tolerance of happiness and distress. Basically, material world is created like this, that this happiness and distress is constantly coming. So we cannot avoid any of them. In fact, even happiness can be distracting in the pursuance of spiritual life. So basically, spiritually advanced persons are not even very eager to get this happiness, because it can be also distraction from duties, from their spiritual practice. So they are tolerating both of them, because both of them will be all the time coming. There is no exception to this. We just have to tolerate, like clouds on the sky. Sometimes they are here, sometimes they go away. Never, there isn't any cloud which would stay for eternity on the sky. They're always moving. So the same way, this happiness and distress are coming and going, and without our wanting them or not, it's like this is their nature. So we shouldn't be distracted with in our duties by those things which are just temporary, and also should not very much stick to them or being attached to them or expecting them like this. And there is a description in the Varnashram institution, means for Varnas or for social orders and for ashramas or spiritual stages of life. So in the spiritual stages, the last one is sannyas. First one is brahmacharya, which means celibate student, is basically up to the 25 years of age. Then there is the grihastha or family life till around 50. I'm saying if somebody is living into 100, up to 100 years, then by 1/4 we divide these stages, these 4 stages. So by 50, by 75, by 100. The third one is vanaprastha, which means kind of retirement, and person at that stage is gradually moving out from his family, moving away. He's more focusing on spiritual life, not very much on any economic development or like this. But still he's close to his family. There are also different stages of this order. He may live nearby and be supported by his family. Then he's supported only, not anymore by family, but by village. Then he can move away, he can start to travel like this. So these stages are there. And the last one is sannyas. Usually in the Western world, sannyas is almost unknown thing. Mostly people end up with retired life, and not even like for spiritual purpose, but usually they try to enjoy their last days in some vacations or things like that, on some hobbies or whatever. But in Vedic life or Vedic system or Varnashram system, sannyas is meant for ultimate spiritual realization and also for preaching. So sannyasis are giving up the connection with their family, especially wife and children. Only connection which remains is with the mother. They will not, they can stay in contact with mother in some way. Usually they are not supposed to come back to their birthplace, but the connection with mother is there. It's very, very special connection. So then sannyasi is renouncing these connections, which may be, of course, difficult, because these family relationships, these attachments are there. They are very natural. So it's not easy to be detached from them. But still they pursue to this, because also this order helps with the preaching, helps with spiritual realization. It moves a person, it gives some opportunities which he would normally not have when not taking sannyas order. Even Srila Prabhupada, he was in a vanaprastha order in the retired life, and he tried to preach, but vanaprasthas are not very much recognized in general. So that's why he took order of sannyas, because in India especially, sannyasi is very respected person. He's also dressing differently and is recognized by a society and is given respect, and people usually like to hear from sannyasis also. So for preaching purposes, he took sannyas, the same Lord Chaitanya did. So he went from family life to sannyas in order to preach, because he was also not taken so seriously, so decided formally to take sannyas, so people can accept, because at the time sannyasis, of course, were also respected persons. So that's the purpose of sannyas life, of sannyas order. And ultimately the result is to get liberated from the material life. Okay, so that's all for today. We will continue tomorrow with the further description of the qualities of the spirit soul. Krishna, Śrīmad Prabhupāda ki jai, Śrīmad Bhagavad-gīta ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivedanta ki jai.